So there we go. Brendan, you can kick us
All
off.
right. Okay, welcome. Hi, thanks for joining us on your lunch break here today. We are going to be talking about quarterly planning using advanced roadmaps. Just a sort of quick intro. So my name is Brendan Byers. I'm a co-leader of the Vancouver ACE group. I've been an admin on Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket server since 2016. We're working for Absolute Software. We, much like Erica, does quarterly planning, and advanced roadmaps sort of help us get to a shared vision of that plan for the quarter. We've got about 20 plus teams across 2 continents, which makes things interesting. 100 plus developers, and most of our teams are using agile methodologies of some sort, either sprints or in some cases Kanban. So that's me, Erica.
Yeah, so I'm the leader of the Boise Atlassian community group, and I've been the leader for just over 2 years now. And I've been an Atlassian Jira Confluence mainly admin since 2015. My first company was, we had a server instance, and now I'm on a data center instance. And by the end of the year, I will have cloud experience because we're going to take that plunge this year into the cloud. So that's kind of where my experience is at. Our company really did quarterly planning sort of for the second time. We've kind of tried it throughout the history of the company, but really sort of this dedicated R&D, everybody's all in quarterly planning for Q4 last year and then Q1. And we have a large development team. So over 40 teams that we planned for. There's almost over 400 devs. We had all of our product managers involved. And it was in Q4 that we decided to get everybody on agile sprints, and they're all sort of coinciding. And so we have, the same start and ends for a sprint cadence of 2 weeks. So we have that pretty synchronized, which really helped us out with the quarterly planning. And then we used advanced roadmaps, which we'll talk through. And we have a little bit of Excel usage as well, but we kind of trying to go all in on the advanced roadmaps path to really help us out with planning. So excited to kind of share our learnings.
All right.
So what is advanced roadmaps? So this used to be called portfolio. So if you're, that's what you're used to. I still slip up and I'm like, yeah, portfolio, and then in the drop down on Jira itself, it's called plans. So, it gets a little confusing, but it's all really the same thing. So it is really just something to sort of help out with your planning and sort of future looking out and trying to figure out what your work's going to be doing, whether it's for R&D. You could even do it for like onboarding or implementations of clients. It's a great tool for that as well. Comparable marketplace add-ons, some of these I've used in the past is like big picture or structure. So if you have those marketplace add-ons, this is similar to that. So you could probably use some of our tips for that, but we're going to talk about advanced plans or advanced roadmaps specifically today. And it is included with data center. Or if you have cloud premium. So if you are on like cloud standard, or if you're still on server and you don't have the add-on advanced roadmaps, then you won't have access to this tool. Now, just a reminder, server's going away. So, you need to move on to data center or cloud soon. So this is a tool that you may have access to if you do move to data center or cloud premium.
Yeah, I think it's been fully delisted on the server marketplace, but I mean, you're running out of time to do any sort of app purchase on that platform anyway.
That's true. That's true.
All right, so we've broken up our discussion today, a couple different things, because basically you start by setting up your plan. So we've got a couple of tips here for that purpose. So what advanced roadmaps does is it basically brings in your selected Jira issues into a kind of a sort of almost a separate space that allow you to make changes and to update and try different things, and not have those changes immediately impact your main instance there. You have to check in the changes sort of as you make them. So the first step is to bring the issues in that you need. So issues are brought in via boards or projects or filters. Boards are particularly important because they carry with them sprint information. So you can bring in lots of different teams and lots of different boards, whatever your needs are, but there are sort of like upper limits in terms of I think they cap the issues per plan at 5,000, and obviously, you know, as they may change that limit in the future, but that's what it is currently. So a couple pro tips that we recommend, or that you can try out, is that you want to use your sprint boards if you're planning for agile teams. In our case, we bring in a couple of different. We mostly are working with sprint boards. There are a few teams that we have on our roster that are using a Kanban methodology. And in order to see their work alongside the rest of the team's work, we do spin up a little sprint board for them. And for planning purposes, we may just give them a sprint that basically lasts the entire cadence of the release, and not worry too much about you know, their overall sprint velocity, and let them go with the Kanban route. So only bring in what you need. Build specific sprint boards if you need to limit what is going in there. So if your big board has your main team board has a backlog of hundreds of issues, but you're only looking at, you know, a specific release, maybe spin up a board that only, you know, that the underlying filter only brings in that release. And of course, the more issues that you bring in, the slower the load time, you'll see some impact at higher levels as to overall performance.
So fields are super important, and this is something that we sort of learned at Clearwater, was really the importance of using the built-in system fields and not the customized fields as much as possible. So when you get advanced roadmaps, there's some fields that you get, like the team field, really building out those teams. I recommend making them shared teams, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit as well. Using the release or the fixed version field, because that's what's going to give you that milestone view. Making sure you're using parent link, right? And not the standard issue linking feature when you're saying, hey, this epic rolls up into your next higher level. That's really key. For measuring the effort of your work, whether you're going to use story points and you're going to have that as your sort of measurement of effort, or if you're going to use time tracking, using those built-in fields. Otherwise, it's just not going to work, and it's not going to be able to plan out what you need. Now, issue linking, you do want to use in regards to dependencies. So really training your end users to say, hey, I can't get this epic done until this epic is done, or I can't even start this until this other one is done. That's really going to help you out, especially if you're going to use like the auto scheduler feature, things like that. So making sure that you highlight these fields and train your end users on how to fill them out, and giving them sort of that direction. Now, really, you can kind of see in this screenshot here, there's some things that are just not supported in the plan itself. So avoid those multi-picker text fields, or multi-picker fields, or your multi-line text fields. You can't bring them into the plan view. You can kind of see in this screenshot here, there's like rag status and rag tweet, right? So we actually built a rag status field because we couldn't pull in rag tweet. We had to train our end users to switch to use the new field. You want to make sure that you're, like I said, using those proper issue links for dependency. Make sure you're not using relates to. You want to use the is blocked by, or has to be started but after, and using those specific ones. You are given some fields that target start and end dates are created when you download the tool and you add it. You don't have to use those dates. You can actually customize it. So if your team and your group is really used to using due date, due date can be your final date on there if that's what makes the most sense for your company. But you can also use these, built out fields that come with the tool as well.
And as Erica was mentioning, the other field that it adds is the team field. This is a kind of a unique field. It's not like a standard drop down or anything, although it tends to behave that way in most issues. So each issue can be assigned to a specific team, only one per issue, and you're able to, within the plan, define a team's velocity. And that can vary based on different sprints or whatnot. So teams can be shared in multiple plans. You have to actually create them as a shared team, and that becomes basically a selectable option in the team dropdown on all tickets, where that field is visible and available and editable. So a couple of quirks is that it's not actually available because of its unique status. It's not actually available to display everywhere. Certain places like the issue details view on certain boards, it just will not be available for that. So if you need that information, sometimes there's little workarounds, like we've got a script runner script that just is working in the background and sort of pushes that information to another field so that we have that sort of shared and synced and whatnot. When you're doing JQL queries with the team field, it defaults to the ID, which makes it really difficult to read if you're not sort of familiar that your team Sherlock, for example, is actually ID number 40 or something like that. So a few other little quirks: only one team per issue. That can cause reporting challenges for multiple team efforts. If you've got multiple teams working under a specific epic, you have to choose one of the teams that is working on it to sort of assign to that epic. Advanced roadmaps will show you can view it in such a way that it shows you all the teams that are rolled up underneath that, but the ownership relationship is strictly one-to-one at this point in time. I know it's a requested feature that maybe Atlassian will do at some point. But shared teams is very handy, especially using across multiple teams. You want to make sure you standardize your formula for sprint velocity, so you're not comparing things too wildly.
Yeah, I'll just make a note on that, standardizing the formula. So we did not use story points for our planning, right? Because our teams estimate very differently. So we did use time tracking, and we basically gave all the teams a formula and said, okay, we have this many days in the sprint, and we have maybe this percentage of PTO, and we're going to estimate this percentage of BAU. And then so that gives us about this many days that we can plan for. And so standardizing that across our team sort of really helped. They could still plug in, like, I have this many team members, right? So it still was customized a little bit per team, but we kind of gave them a formula that they could use as far as doing their estimating per days.
And the sprint velocity, I believe it's unique to each individual plan, so you may need to reset it, as you share that team across.
Yep.
Across multiple plans.
So issue hierarchy. So the wonderful benefit of advanced plans is that you get to have these levels above an epic. I can't tell you how many times before this was available, people were like, but how do I like group my epics together? I have multiple things that need to get done, and efforts and milestones. And so it's really great that you kind of have this roll up of epics into your higher level that you can really call whatever you want. So initiative is sort of the example here that is most commonly used by Atlassian. Our company called them deliverables, and that's sort of what we named them. And so it's just really this great way to sort of bucket things together a little bit better. You can also set unique sort of issue types right at that level. So For R&D, it might be a deliverable, but for your onboarding or your implementation teams, maybe that level is client, right? And so we have one client and all of the epics that need to get done for this client to be onboarded. So you can see in that screenshot, there's 2 different issue types that are actually associated with that. So that maybe helps if different teams want to use that next level in organizing their work. Be really cautious on adding more than 1 level above Epic. Our first pass at using advanced roadmaps, we had 3 levels above Epic, and it was so complicated to manage because now you have these 3 other issue types, and what fields go on that issue type, and what's the workflow for each of those issue types, and what rolls up and rolls down, and it created just really this extra maintenance burden on all of our team members. So start with 1. And then go from there. Like if you really feel like you found a need that is like, yeah, I just need this extra level, really just think twice before you actually do that. Is that really what you need? Or do you just need a field that says theme rather than having a new issue type that you need to manage that says theme? So my recommendation, stick with 1, start with 1, and be very cautious if you want to add anything more than that.
Simpler is usually better.
Yes, 100%.
So once you've got your plan put together, you've got all your issues together, in your plan, now it's time to actually work with your teams and start planning. So that planning may take up different sort of phases and whatnot. So you can create a plan that is specifically aimed towards high level planning, something that maybe only goes down to the epic level, that only looks at sort of upper tier hierarchy. And even though it's not necessarily standard practice, you can, if you want those big ballpark estimates, that when you're just sort of bouncing around, your product teams are just sort of bouncing around high level ideas and want to compare, how much is this feature going to cost versus that feature, you can ballpark and put in estimates and sort of see how that's going to affect the team over the course of the quarter. One thing you need to keep in mind is that advanced roadmaps will double count those points if you don't remove them once you start adding in the stories underneath it. So if you sort of start with a ballpark of, well, this epic's going to be, my team. My team has a velocity of 25 story points. It's going to take 3.5 sprints, so 90 story points. That's about right and whatnot. So you can sort of see that how that's going to look. But if you don't remove those story points and they start adding in all the stories and whatnot, it'll double count. Just recently at the quarterly planning, a number of sprints were listed as being overloaded, and the reason behind that was there was just some forgotten story points in an epic somewhere that actually started out as a story at one point. So keep an eye out for that sort of thing if you're doing high level planning before you get into the story by story estimates.
So planning out future sprints. So this is sort of where we talked about like the source and what you bring into the plan can be really helpful. So if you are bringing in a board, you get this ability to bring in the sprints as well. If you're just using a source of a filter or a project, you're not going to get sort of those sprints and that data pulling in. So by default, advanced roadmaps kind of creates your future sprints. So when we did our planning, we actually just created one sprint, gave it its start end date, and then it projected all of the rest. And you can kind of see in this screenshot that they had those projected sprints that says, oh, I see what your cadence is. I'm going to continue to put these 2-week sprints out there. So that's really, really nice. The other thing that you can do is you can do this capacity basically on a sprint basis. So if you already know kind of what your sprint cadence is, and like, hey, this is spring break week and I'm going to have half my team out, my sprint velocity for this sprint is going to be less, you could add that in there and say, hey, let's not fill this one all the way up, and sort of program that out. Now, it's sort of weigh the effort versus reward. How much benefit are you going to have of going out there and programmatically changing all those sprint velocities? Or if it's more of a like, hey, we'll get close, right? Anytime you plan, you're hoping for getting the percentage right? You don't never really expect to get 100% accuracy. So if it's worth it, right, and it's going to help you plan out, go in there and enter that in. But if it's like, it'll get close, then you don't have to go out there and change those sprint velocities. So as I mentioned, right, create that first sprint. Then it's going to give you sort of all of those projected sprints will fill in. I really recommend directing users not to add epics to like their add epics to a sprint, or like your initiative or deliverable level to a sprint. It kind of screws up your planning, and your board looks all funky because you get these extra sprints in there and things like that. And really, we shouldn't have epics in a sprint, right? We should have stories and tasks. And that's the level that we should be doing sprint planning at. So just sort of a recommendation there. There's sometimes some cleanup that needs to be done if people are sort of doing wrong behaviors and processes there. I will say, if you're planning for multiple teams, so, as I mentioned at the beginning, we had over 40 teams that were planning. They're all on multiple sprint boards. I created one agile board, brought in all of the issues that I cared about with a filter on this agile board. And then that's the only thing that I brought into my sprint. So whatever makes the most sense for the size of the team and the department that you're planning for, you can kind of figure out what makes the most sense. For us, it was, let's just do one thing. Let's bring in what we care about. We didn't even bring in the story level. And then we just brought in that one board, and that really helped with sort of the sprint view and not having all this extra stuff show.
All right, and one of the questions I get asked from time to time is, how can we represent milestones on this board? So, and generally, the best way to do this is to use fixed versions or releases, as they're referred to within advanced roadmaps. Now, obviously, there are certain connotations associated with those terms that you may need to have some education or agreement, but ultimately what a fixed version or a release is a block of work, a bucket full of work with a start and an end date. So if you need to complete a series of epics and stories by a certain date to meet that first phase of your project, set up a release that is just phase one that has your key start date, and that way you can sort of see, well, all my work going to align to that first milestone, and then we can sort of say, yep, we're going to be good, and then move on to the next milestone. So it helps with breaking it down. You can sort of see as in the screenshot that yes, we're making we're going to be on target for phase one, and we'll be ahead of the game for phase two. If you're working with multiple projects, these fixed versions, you'll need them in multiple projects as well, but advanced roadmaps can help align those dates across multiple projects. So it just requires a little bit of education and understanding to sort of get things together. And another sort of neat little trick that I use during planning, particularly if you want to sort of see, like stakeholders want to see what's in and what's out, and that is, some cases that's very fluid and can change depending on priorities. And as we sort of see what's out, well, if there's like some horse trading that can be done or whatnot. So rather than try and remove tickets from the plan and add tickets to the plan, people want a more dynamic way of sort of seeing things. So you can actually create basically what I like to think of them as like a dividing line. You add a ticket at sort of the top layer, top level of the hierarchy that you want to move things for. You don't even need to actually check it in and create a proper Jira ticket. It just, as long as it exists within the portfolio plan, you can drag and drop issues above and below a line, the proverbial line for the release, or any other sort of categorization. So that's helpful in sort of looking at different things. So Once you've got your plan all mapped out, then it's often you want to be sharing it with stakeholders and everyone else at the company so that everybody is in alignment on what we're doing. So.
Yeah, so there is really an unlimited way you can kind of view your plans, which is really kind of it's really great. So there's a few basic ones that are anytime you build a plan that you get automatically, like a dependency view or the sprint capacity view. I think with the sprint capacity view, it's really important, I think, to either group by teams. So then you can kind of get the warnings of an overloaded sprint capacity and kind of see where the work flows for each team, which is really great. The colors of the Gantt chart bars can all be customized based off of really whatever kind of custom field that you're able to pull in. So this screenshot here gives you this example of a RAG status view, right? So we have a custom field that's called RAG status, right? If it is the project red, amber, or green, and then we can color code based off of that. And then you can build a specific view that's your like red and amber view. And so it filters everything down, and I only want to see things that are at risk. And so it can quickly give you that view for the whole plan and maybe not just ones or twosies here and there. So that's something that works really great. Labels are really great as far as dynamic for coloring. And Brendan kind of walk through how he used that on the next slide.
Yeah, so this is just a different sort of screenshot. So another example, specifically with using labels. So all you need to do is make sure that the label exists in a single ticket in Jira before you can't create it just from whole cloth within the plan itself. But once it exists on a ticket somewhere in Jira, you can use it however you like. And it's the most dynamic way because you can just spin up the label, add it as a particular color, and then start tagging tickets to it. You don't even need to check those changes in if you don't want to. It's up to you.
So there's a few different ways you can share the plan, right? You can really just send people a link to the Jira plan itself. This is really great for your internal users who have access to Jira. So that's an option that'll send them basically a read-only view of the plan. And make sure you kind of set your default view correctly. So when you share that out, that's going to be what they're going to see. You also have the ability in Data Center and in Cloud to embed the plan on a Confluence page. So that's really great if you have basically like maybe a home-based Confluence page that you want to put this plan embedded on, and then have more details around, here are the initiatives or the themes, or, here are your contact people, things like that, if you have more that you want to add there to a Confluence page. You also have a CSV export option. So the one thing that I think some people they want to do a little bit more dynamic reporting, or they want a specific view, or they have executives who are not very comfortable in Jira or Confluence, right? And they want to have something different. You can export this to CSV, but then you would still have to build all of those reports yourself and visualizations within Excel. This does give you a good option to share things externally if your Jira or your Confluence instances are not externally shared outside your company, but you want to share something with a client. This gives you that ability to do that with the CSV piece.
All right, and the other thing that you need to keep in mind is that the data is always live. It's constantly pulling the latest changes from your Jira instance and including that and displaying that as part of your plan. And so while you can sort of go back and sort of look at what teams were working on 2 months ago or so, it's going to be based off of whatever was done, not necessarily whatever was proposed at one point. So any changes that happen between periods is not maintained. So we tend to take screenshots that establish milestones so that you've got a copy of the plan as it was originally, versus any sort of changes or additions that have been made along the way. And this can be, good for quarterly retrospectives or anything like that, if you want to sort of compare original with actionable.
So the other sort of feature that we haven't really talked about yet is scenarios. So this is really, you can use it in combination with views, which views are all about setting like your timeline and your fields and columns that show or filtering on specific issues. Scenarios basically allow you to kind of play around with the plan, right? So if you want to do some visualizations of best and worst case scenarios without actually impacting the data that you have in Jira, this gives you that ability to say, well, what if this piece, which is really risky, and we're actually a little bit worried that might not meet this timeline, ends up taking us an extra month? What happens to my plan, right? And that's where setting up your issue links are going to be really important. So you can kind of see that critical path. Or, hey, what if best case scenario, this doesn't even, this takes us a week to do. What does that look like? And you can kind of play around with that. One way that we actually used it was to do sort of team capacity checks. So what we did is we deleted out all of the dates that people had put in, and we just took the team assignment and we took the estimate. So we used time in our case. And then I did this auto schedule feature in a specific scenario. So I basically said, okay, at this point in time, when I did this auto schedule, our accounting team was way overbooked, right? But maybe our regulatory team had some extra capacity. And so it kind of gave us a little bit of an idea of what are the teams that we need to be worried about. They're committing too much, or hey, you have some extra bandwidth based off of the estimates that you've given to the things that we've assigned to you. So this is where the pro tip comes in. If you do use that auto schedule feature and you have something in your plan that doesn't have a team assigned, the auto schedule will just assign it to a random team, which for the most part, I don't think probably works for most R&D teams, right? You're going to have a team that owns a specific product and they have a specific skill set. So what we did is we just created like an unassigned team. Before I ran the auto scheduler, I took any things that weren't assigned to a team, assigned them to that. So then the auto schedule feature didn't accidentally give another team extra work when it wasn't their stuff to do. So hygiene is really important as far as filling out fields, but the scenarios is pretty cool, and the features that it can do for you there.
All right. So a couple of sort of general tips. So things not to do, what doesn't work super well. So if you're missing data, this makes things much more difficult. Make sure that you have the issues that you need. You can remove issues and they sort of go on a separate filter. But a lot of, and depending on how complicated your boards or filters are for pulling in data, I field a lot of questions about why this ticket isn't showing up in the plan or why that ticket isn't showing up in the plan. And usually there's a simple misunderstanding, or a release wasn't filled in or something like that. So education is really key to make sure that everything is there so that nothing gets missed or overlooked. Auto scheduler, as Erica was just mentioning, it can certainly be helpful, but it does its thing the way it feels like doing its thing there. So you've got some control over it. Use it at your discretion. It's almost certain, it may not produce a full plan that you can just use, but by all means you can try it out and then tweak your plan as you see fit there.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say there that it doesn't do great, right, is that I have a team of 4 developers and I want, only one developer to work on this for 2 months, it'll be like, oh, you have 4 developers, this can get done in 2 weeks, and assigns all 4 developers to it. So it doesn't really do that very well as far as sort of spreading the capacity. And so you kind of have to manipulate and tweak those things yourself.
You can order by, it gives you a number of options to order by things other than fields other than rank. But the second that you do that, it disables the drag and drop feature. And again, I've had a couple of panicked product owners come back to me and say, advanced roadmap's broken. I can't drag and drop anything anymore. And it's just, well, your setting is ordered by a start date or something like that. So keep that in mind. Again, education to editors is key. All the shared views that it produces are read-only, regardless of whether the person that you're sharing it with has editing privileges or not. So again, if you're trying to share something for the purposes of editing, you don't really want to use that share button. You just want to grab the URL of the plan and educate the other person to sort of go to a set view, and so that everybody's looking at things in the same way. If you have very dependent teams or products, live visibility into their capacity can be difficult at times. And external visibility to plans on a private instance, that can be a bit of a struggle. Plans also have their own permissions on top of what other permissions there are out there. So make sure that I think there's several levels of permission. There needs to be like general access to advanced roadmaps given, and then specific access to the plan on top of having access to the different projects. So it's a permissions palooza there that you got.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And this external visibility has been a challenge for us, right? Especially for like our onboarding and implementation groups when we're onboarding new clients, right? Being able to share something with them of like, hey, here's where we're at, here are the things going, right? We can't really share an active live view of that without opening up our Jira instance, which is just not a security risk we want to take. So that's just something that it's like, it'd be great if we could figure out, a better PDF export or something like that that Atlassian could do. But right now, that's just not a great experience.
No. So sometimes screenshots are the easiest way.
For sure. So what processes help outside of advanced roadmaps? I was on LinkedIn this morning and I saw this really great quote from Dominic Price, who is the work futurist at Atlassian. And he said, "A fool with a tool is still a fool." And I just thought that was so brilliant, really, because your tools are only as good as the people and the processes around them. And so I think there's a lot that you can do with advanced roadmaps, but there's a really important things that you need to think about outside of the tool itself. So one thing that worked really great for us is we assigned really one team member. There was sort of a team, but really one person was kind of leading and organizing the effort. He was building all of the documentation for us, really kind of helping handhold team members who were struggling with either just understanding the concepts in general or using the Jira tooling and the advanced roadmaps. And so he just did a great job just like leading that effort. And so I think that's really important, is just having somebody who's the go-to person when you have a question. And sometimes he would reach out and delegate, but that was really helpful. The other thing is the prioritization framework, right? So before we even put anything into the plan to talk about, we used something called RICE. It's a pretty standard sort of prioritization framework that's out there. It's got that little formula over in the top. So you have what is the reach on a score 1 through 5? What is the impact score 1 through 5? You kind of have to give some definitions around that internally in your company. What is your confidence level based off of the information that you have right now? So is your dev team like, yeah, we got this, right? 100% confidence, or like, whoa, product, we do not have enough information, right? Our confidence level is like 25% right now on what the heck you guys want. And then divided by the effort that the development team gives you as well. So it gives you this score that you can kind of use to say, hey, this has our higher RICE score. Maybe we should actually do this instead of this thing that's like a pet project for somebody that they're really passionate about, but it has a kind of low RICE score. So it makes those conversations a little bit more level and easier to talk about within the organization. Providing team members with really clear instructions, one step at a time. So we had a Confluence page and we said, okay, you need to build out your epics by this date, and this is the data you need to have on them, right? You need to have the team filled out. You need to have an effort on it. So we provided them really kind of clear instructions. And then, okay, now you need to have your RICE score into Jira by this date. And so really just sort of kind of helping team members along so they don't feel super overwhelmed, so that they kind of know what are the steps I need to do and by what time do I need to do them. And we had a Confluence page that just really built that all out. And then I do recommend building out a dashboard. So this is just a screenshot of like one of the dashboards that we have. We use the HTML widget on dashboards all the time. It's super useful to provide definition or guidance on like, what are you looking at on this dashboard? But it gives you a little bit better of that visualization that you might not get in advanced roadmaps. And then conduct a retro after planning. I don't know if Christine is still on the call, but she did a wonderful job for us at Clearwater as far as conducting a retro and really talk about it. Like what went well for us. We were still using Excel and Jira for Q1. And the feedback that we got was like, hey, let's just try to get it all into Jira. Let's get out of this Excel madness, right? And so it was really good. So we can continue to iterate each quarter and how can we improve this quarterly planning process and make those steps in the right direction. So really think about the people and the processes and not just the tool. The tool is great. It will help you. But there's so much more outside of that will really make an impact and make your quarterly planning be successful.
All right.
And yeah, with that, that's really kind of all the topics that we had. So if you guys have any questions, anything that we didn't cover, let us know. We're happy to have any questions from you guys.
Yeah.
I guess I could start. And I don't know if this is the right forum, so you can just tell me if it's not. But I actually just have, I think they're closer to feature requests. I'm coming from the structure world, as you alluded to, Erica, for prioritizing our backlog. And there are some things there that I thought were really convenient, like the quick filters, just like a toggle to start. So if I just want to see everything in this release, I just have a quick filter at the top just to see my prioritized list according to that fixed version. So first of all, is that this is the right forum to provide that feedback, or is there another forum that I should be providing feedback?
Well, and we don't control the tool ourselves. We're just users, much like
I see.
ourselves.
Okay.
But
okay.
What I would suggest in those sort of circumstances is, you can set up specific views, and those views have set filters. Right. That will default everybody that goes to that view to sort of see things. So yes, if you want to see, I want to see all this particular release, you go in, set up that, and then save that as a saved view, and anybody else using that can go to that view and see the exact same material.
Yep. Okay, yep, that would be my recommendation as well, is just doing the views.
Yeah. And
then we had that extra dashboard that helped as well, so you can kind of have that sort of view of the different issues. But yeah, quick filters would be awesome. We can try to see what resources we have in the leadership group and for community, but yeah.
Okay, no, thanks for clarifying that. This is my first time coming to these, so now that makes a little more sense about what your intro slide was all about as well. So okay, thanks for clarifying that. So maybe I do have a question that maybe this group could help with. With structure, for what reason I felt like dragging and dropping was a little bit simpler. Because I have a list of like 80 items in it, and new things go to the bottom, and I want to drag them up towards the top, and it's very painful. I know there's the bulk action to like move it to this specific or above or below this specific feature, or I guess ticket. Is there any other tips you guys have in terms of how to effectively like drag? Because it's so slow if I'm just trying to drag it like upwards.
Those are the same options, and certainly if you're dealing with a large plan, it does feel like it can take absolutely days to drag it to the top. The bulk action for advanced roadmaps, it can go straight to the top, straight to the bottom, above and below a particular issue or whatnot. Having things like the example where you have sort of predefined issues that sort of represent barriers or categories or whatnot. If you know the ticket numbers of those, that can help. I mean,
Yeah.
it's still, you still have to know the
Yeah, no,
ticket ID in order to move it above or below another thing. But those seem to be, that seems to be everything that's on offer at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. No, thanks. Yeah. Two more really quick questions. Is there any way just to like, I know you can scroll the timeline to the right so you don't see it, but that sort of affects how my other columns sort of resize. Is there any way just to like not have the timeline show up? I want to use it eventually, but for my purposes right now, I just want to clear the clutter. Do you know if there's a way to not show it at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, but you can extend out that the columns of fields until it's such that it's basically invisible.
Yeah, and that's basically what I've done. It just makes this, for whatever reason, there's something with resizing the columns that doesn't work well when that timeline's all over the like hidden to the right. Okay, that's fine. My last question then is maybe about setting up the board. I noticed that you guys suggested using a Scrum board or I can't remember the other options, but you didn't actually say use the JQL filter directly, and that's the way I've done it. So is there any disadvantages to just going straight to the JQL?
Well, the board is basically a JQL filter just funneled through additional information, right? Because you set up your board, you know, based off of whatever JQL filter there. So the advantage of the board is that you've then got that access to that sprint information that's associated with the board. So it's the only reason to not do, and I personally, I actually use a combination of boards and filters because there's some of the information, particularly for the high level initiatives or those upper hierarchy tiers, they're not in any of my boards. They're off on a separate project somewhere. So you just pull that information. So a combination is usually what I recommend.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I built a custom JQL, then powered the board, right? But so really it's the same thing. It's just, do you want the sprint information or not? Otherwise, it's pretty much the same.
Okay, no, thanks. Thanks for the presentation. I really like the way you guys bounce back and forth. Slides were really easy to follow, so didn't lose me at all. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining, Michael. Yeah.
Please welcome. It's good to have this as your first attending.
Thanks. I should say I'm on for the Motorola Solutions. I'm actually based in Vancouver. It's one of their recent acquisitions. So like I said, we used to have Structure, but now with big Motorola, they have the, I don't know what version of Jira, but that Plans is part of it. So I'm trying to use that.
Yeah. Yeah. As Erica mentioned, if you're on Data Center or Jira Premium, you're paying for this tool whether you're using it or not. So learning how to make use of it can be handy, because I mean everybody's got to be off server in 2 years time. So you know, you're the clock's ticking there.
Yep.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? We do have a little bit of swag to raffle off here in a moment, so don't rush off, but we do want to make sure if there's any other insight that we can provide to help you on your advanced roadmaps journey. Okay.
Hey, Brendan, are you guys on Atlassian Cloud, or I joined late, sorry, but are you guys on Data Center or Atlassian Cloud?
We are currently still on server with the intention to go to cloud.
Okay.
Erica is on Data Center with the and server with the intention to go to cloud as well. So.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So my experience is Data Center, but we're working to migrate to cloud this year.
Okay.
But we do have some experience with cloud. Just like I've gone in there and played around. I have like a demo plan in cloud. So if you have cloud's questions, we may be able to answer them still.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have I work at Micron. We have a combination of data center and some server instances, and of course, we don't have options for server in the future. So we're debating going to cloud or data center. You know, a single server data center version. But cloud is really limited for some of the functionality that we want to do. As far as we kind of built our own automation tool that uses YAML files to reproduce, spaces and, well, I guess in this case, projects and Confluent spaces and things. And so cloud's too limited for us. But anyway, just good to know what's out in the community there as we get closer to having to make some decisions here. So appreciate that.
For data center, again, it's fully included. They just have bundled it in, and it's there whether if you want it or not.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, we've got a few minutes left, so we'll just wrap things up, and then we've got a quick raffle there for you. So.
Yeah, so just wanted to kind of highlight some upcoming events. February 24th, tomorrow, there is multiple ACE groups are doing a combined event for agile planning with Atlassian tools. So they're going to cover more than just advanced roadmaps. They're going to talk about Align and I think a couple of marketplace add-ons. I believe it's like a 2-hour session starting at 4 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow. So if that's something that you're interested in, I will throw the link in the chat to one of them. You can kind of RSVP to any of them and get access to it. So if you're interested in learning more, this is a great option. And then also March 16th, the Boise ACE is going to be having a session on the case for Jira service management. And I believe if Todd is still on the call, he's going to be presenting that session for us. So we're really excited. I know that's something that the Boise ACE group has been interested in learning more about. So, so that will be March 16th. It'll be at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. So thank you, Todd. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, everyone come with low expectations and let me match those.
The event is not published yet, but we'll get that published as soon as possible. So then you guys can go in and RSVP and get it on your calendar. And then the Atlassian Team 2022 is back. So this is their big conference that they hold every year. And with COVID, the last couple of years, it has been virtual only, but they are now going to be in person in Vegas. So if you are interested, it is April 5th through the 6th at the Venetian. The code there, Team Leader 101, will get you the pass for $650. Those passes were sold out for that cost, but if you use this code, you can still get in for $650. So that is going to be awesome. I believe Brendan and I are both going to be there in person. If attending in person is really just not an option, whether financially, safety, any of that, it is still virtual and it is free to attend virtually. So that still is an option that you can sign up and sort of watch all the virtual sessions and things like that. So that's a great option for everybody as well. So just wanted to highlight that. And then shameless plug. If you are interested in being a community event leader and doing what Brendan and I do and get all the amazing perks that we have, I mean, it's really cool. We get access to special events just for community leaders. We get swag all the time. I think I have more Atlassian swag than Clearwater swag. It's really cool. And we get to meet great people and host these events. So if you're interested and you're in the Boise area, please reach out to me. And then if you're interested in joining Brendan and Frida in Vancouver, you can reach out to them and become a community event leader. And we would love to have you join our team. So yes, let me know if you're interested.
Yeah. And then as the world starts to open up again, hopefully we can have more in-person events because
yes,
we miss those so very much.
Definitely.
All right, well, we are just about at time. I see we've got about, there's 17 people in attendance here, so minus the trio of hosts here. So I am just going to run a random number generator. I don't know how well you can see that. And then we'll just going by alphabetical. So random number. I got 5, which you totally can't see, but I assure you. So that would be 1, 2, 4, 5. D. Berg. Well, congratulations to you. You want to hang around? I can. Oh, and he may have just dropped. Oh no, there he is.
I'm here. Thanks.
There you are. All right. So we will get you a $25 gift card to the Atlassian swag store.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you again sometime soon.
Thank
Thanks.
you guys so much. Please reach out. We're happy to answer questions or anything like that. So thank you so much for joining, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks, Erica. See ya.
Yeah.